as you just saw, I went ahead and I cleaned up all the caulk line areas that I'm going to be recaulking. The purpose of that is to have a nice clean surface for when I do cut out the old caulk for it to adhere to. The advantage of doing this before I cut out the old caulk is to make sure that moisture doesn't get into the gaps there and then get encapsulated when I caulk. So that's a good first step for this process. Here are the basic things that you'll need for recaulking a tub. You'll need a caulk gun, some silicone caulk. You will need a utility knife and then some flat edge razors for getting some surfaces, a putty knife for being able to get some really hard caulk out. In some situations it can be kind of like concrete. I have some finishing tools, a little tool here that you can use for being able to remove caulk. If you don't have these other things, it's a little something that they sell in the hardware stores. And then some paper towels and a dustpan and a bag for being able to clean up the debris.
As you see here, I'm using my utility knife by cutting kind of straight down from the tile itself into the edge of the tub and then coming back through using that utility knife perpendicular to the tub to remove the major portion of caulk, and then coming through with a scraper to clear that caulk off of the tile and the tub. And that's what's illustrated here on the vertical tiles. And then I go through and I will pick out stuff with my hands and then use a brush to...
One thing you want to know is that pretty regularly the blades will break and chip off like this. So you're going to need multiple replacements for that, and also ideally a nice sharp one for the utility knife. So have those on hand when you're doing this project. In areas like this where the color is a strong contrast to the white for the caulk we're actually going to put in here, I'd like to use a little bit of masking tape to kind of mask off this area here so that it has a nice crisp line for when we go and actually put in the caulk. And in the other areas where it's white on white, it won't be so noticeable. But if I didn't put this tape on here in this contrasted area, then it would just smear over a lot. And this just gives them a nice professional crisp line. What I like to do before I go and put the caulk on the walls is I like to prepare a wet soapy paper towel. And so I usually use some nice clear hand soap, and then I just kind of mix it in here. And so when I put the caulk in there, I will use it to kind of wipe it out. And the neat thing about it is it allows you to smear the caulk on there nicely, and then the soap will make it so that it really doesn't stick onto your fingers that much, and it gets a nice finished look. Okay, I'm going to put in a bead of caulk on this side. What I've done is I've taken the liberty of taking that shower head off, ideally so that you guys can see it, but also just gives a little more elbow room. So I'm taking that wet and soapy paper towel and then just going to wipe it into this spot here. I like to do when I am going and caulking a space like this is I like to work my way out of the space. So I'm going to work the top corners, the nook, this back wall before I do the sides, and that way I don't accidentally smear it. One thing I'm going to do before I move on is I am going to smear that edge in a second, but I'm going to fill the tub, because what I want the tub to do is I want it to sit down as low as it can, because basically the walls of the tub and the tile itself do expand and contract with the weight of the water and the person that's in it. And so I want that to be as far apart as possible when I put the caulk on it, and that way when you empty it and the tub kind of comes up a tiny bit, it just makes that bead of caulk even that much thicker. So I'm going to leave that caulk there and just fill this thing up. Okay, now that the tub is filled, I'm going to go ahead and just smear that last bit of caulk on the back of this thing out. The previous tube of caulk got used up, so I'm showing you what I like to do. I basically like to cut a small little opening like this here to spread the caulk around. Now inside silicone caulk is a membrane that you need to actually puncture before you can squeeze out the caulk, and most caulk guns have this spike here so that you can go ahead and puncture that seal, and then you just load it up into the caulk gun. Now, I like to apply a fair amount because there is a gap between the tile and the edge of the tub, And I want it to fill that gap, and then I can just remove the excess in a second or two. So it's not the prettiest as it's going on there right now, but it will be in a minute. Now, some people will use finishing tools like this to apply the caulk. I like to use my fingers. I will use these things when I have a contrasting surface between a white tile and like a granite countertop that's black or something like that, because it gives it a nice crisp edge. But because it's white on both sides, I'm going to go ahead and just smear it with my fingers. And I like to use my middle finger, because it's bigger of them all except for my thumb, because it allows it to smear out, to a wider spectrum, I guess, between the two surfaces. And if you do find that it goes up onto the wall like it just did a second ago, you can basically go and kind of taper it down into the main valley between the two, and then go back through again in a second, and go ahead and smooth it out to where it gives it a nice finished look. You see an area where it seems a little thin, so I'm going to apply a little bit more. And it's okay to do that now rather than later. And I might actually use my thumb in this instance, just because that gap seems to be a little bit bigger in that one particular area. And I switched over my pointer finger, my index finger. Hey, just finished up caulking, and I'm going to leave the water in the tub for 24 hours. It's recommended on the back of the tube of the caulk that it cure for 24 hours before, exposing the tub area and the shower area to water. And it basically took me an hour to cut it all out, clean everything up, and then caulk it with the techniques I just showed you. It may take you a little bit longer. I've been doing this for about 25 years, but those techniques I just showed you should help you out to get a nice clean job. So that's today's Mr. Fix-It tip.